I've wanted to discuss this for a very long time. Lost media is a topic that I've been seeing discussed on YouTube more and more lately. For those who are unaware, lost media is a term used to describe recognized pieces of media that are either not readily available online or have scant to non-existent supporting documentation. Lost TV program episodes, lost movies, lost commercials, and even lost logos are some of the most popular subjects for lost media, but I've made the decision to discuss a different topic. We're going to be exploring Canadian lost media today, and one of the topics of lost media today is a certain era on a well-known children's channel. It's likely that you've heard of Kids CBC, or CBC Kids, as it is currently known. Over the years, it has gone by several names, and, naturally, several rebrands. One of these rebrands has very scarce material, yet probably the most nostalgic one in my opinion. Sadly, to this day, most material from this certain era has not been preserved and is considered lost, and the search for new material is still ongoing to this day. Today, we are going to be talking about the Kids CBC Garden Dome. Before we get into the topic about the era, we need to talk about the channel itself. In 1987, Kids CBC began as Hodgepodge Lodge, a 2-hour morning block of children's programming. During this period, the CBC's afternoon children's programming was broadcast under the generic CBC branding. CBC Children as publicist Barbara Chernin and producer Stephen Ray came up with the moniker, while head of CBC Children as programming Angela Bruce consented to the name for the lineup. In the interstitials, blocks, art tools, and animated geometric forms in a variety of colors moved to music. The Hodgepodge Lodge interstitials were replaced with new ones that featured a group of animated animals. As the CBC underwent a rebranding in November of 1992, a contest was held to name the newly introduced character. In 1993, Peter Moss, a former theater director, was appointed head of the CBC's children's programming. The CRTC protested the CBC's lack of children's programming and its scheduling of American shows on weekday afternoons throughout the winter. The program was renamed CBC Playground on October 24, 1994, and the block was extended to 9:30 a.m. with a half-hour block of international children's shows. Colm Feore, Albert Schultz, and Martha Henry recorded the voices for European shows that needed narrators in Toronto. 12 shows for the block's first half-hour went into development, and the CBC said that all programming between 9:30 and 11 a.m. will be Canadian within 2 years. Adrian Mills took over as the CBC's new head of daytime programming in 1998, and a 1-hour expansion and relaunch of CBC Playground took place. Virtual sets were employed, and Lisa Richardson and Drew Carnwath were added to the block as presenters. Along with Canadian Living magazine and the non-profit parent and group Invest in Kids, the CBC joined the Get Set for Life initiative to offer information about preschoolers' development. The campaign included the creation of Parenting with the Zap Family interstitials on CBC Playground. CBC Playground was replaced in 2000 by the Get Set for Life block, which bore the same name as the campaign. Alison Court and Michael Clark hosted this version, and by 2002, Adrian Mills had been replaced by Cheryl Hassan as the CBC's chief of children's programming. Get Set for Life was replaced by Kids CBC in 2003. Although former hosts Michael Clark and Alison Court remained on the show until December 2005, 5 regional hosts from around Canada were the major focus. The hosts were Patty Sullivan for Ontario, Joyce Kwanzaa for Quebec, Kushup Bal for British Columbia, Hayley Jean Penner for Manitoba, and Dashi Malone for Newfoundland and Labrador. The studio settings and appearance have also undergone significant modifications. The girl featured in the Get Set for Life logo was transformed into an animated girl. I know this history lesson seems a bit much, but trust me, you'll find it handy shortly. So now it's time to get to the actual main point of this video. The Kids CBC Garden Dome. On December 24, 2005, Kids CBC introduced what might be the most nostalgic set in my opinion. The set depicted a garden inside a geometric-style dome. Prior to that, the hosts would appear in animated interstitials on the block. By then, Dashim Malone and Haley Jean Penner had left the block and were replaced by Mark O'Brien and Holly Bernier. In addition, the animated host named Dot was also given a pet dog named Puz. Here's what Puz looked like in this photo. This era of Kids CBC lasted between 2005 and 2007. I know what you're thinking, 2 years of use? Finding it shouldn't be that difficult, should it? Regretfully, that isn't true. The garden disappeared on September 3, 2007, and the set was changed to a Canadian village-type setting that had a circle floor, and a treehouse was added, and it was known as the Carrefour Sierra, which also has very scarce material and could later be talked about in a future video. Patty Sullivan remained on the block and would continue to do so until the end of 2016. As for the 4 other hosts, they left the block due to the CBC's budget restrictions and the fact that the block was restricted to being hosted from Toronto by Patty Sullivan. This also resulted in Sid Bob coming in as a co-host, and he would too remain until 2016. Very few searches have been made to locate the Garden Dome era. The first attempts were documented in a March 25, 2011, article on Pacific Domes that included an aerial image of the set and a photo of the 5 presenters. These are what the images are in question. The second round of searches began on April 4, 2014, when Kids CBC posted several vintage Patty videos to their YouTube channel. In honor of Patty Sullivan's 20 years as a children's television host, these were uploaded. This quickly indicated that fresh information from the Garden Dome era had emerged. Painting with Patty and Nap Rap interstitials, both from 2006, were the 2 most noteworthy ones that appeared. Sadly, these videos are no longer available to view from Kids CBC's YouTube channel, but they are still up on my YouTube channel and are featured in my Vintage Patty video compilation. The link to the video is in the description. Some further information on the Dome Garden era was added to the Lost Media Archive wiki in March 2018. From what I can recall from memory, the intro showed Patty flying a plane to the dome and pulling the 4 other hosts out of ATV. Also shown here is a possible screenshot from the aforementioned opening. An article on Reddit was later created in 2021 that contained even more information about the aforementioned era. From what I can also recall, besides Painting with Patty, there were other interstitials from the era such as Cooking with Kush, Music with Mark and Hobbies with Holly. I'm not quite sure if Joyce had her own interstitial segment, but it can be assumed it was called Journaling with Joyce. I'm also not sure what other interstitials I remember from the era, as my memory is quite hazy. But I can also recall the block signing off with the credits playing over a panning shot of the set in the background. Regarding the Hobbies with Holly thing I mentioned before, I learned that the name was the title of an interstitial after coming onto a video that Holly Bernier shared on her Facebook page in May 2013. I was then told by a Reddit user about another Lost Kids CBC show from that set era, which was called Your It. Yes, that's what it was called. I was then greeted with this. Sadly, there isn't any footage of material at all regarding this show. As I've said before, this era of Kids CBC is quite scarce. To conclude, the Kids CBC Garden Dome era is still lost as of 2024, and whole fresh content is still missing. It is still possible that additional material from this era will be discovered in the future, though, given the discovery of certain fragmentary material, such as the set shots and the vintage Patty stuff I mentioned earlier. Regarding how it may be accomplished, searching for all Kids CBC recordings from 2005 to 2007 would be the most effective method for locating this time period. Who knows, though? Perhaps in the future, fresh content will surface, but for now, this particular Kids CBC era is lost. That brings an end to this video. This is as much as I could to describe what I remember about this era. All in all, I'm genuinely surprised that this particular Kids CBC period has fallen through the cracks, considering how many other obscure Kids CBC eras, like the Get Set for Life era from 2000 and the Carrefour era from 2007, managed to find their way online. Hopefully, if anyone manages to find any Kids CBC 2005 to 2006 stuff, then that's a good start. And I could consider doing more videos similar to this in the future. If enough people enjoy it, Please remember to like, subscribe, and enable alerts if you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out.